Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is July 22nd, 2015, and when is enough enough? I did a report yesterday on General Wesley Clark, a four-star general, talking about throwing disloyal, whatever that means, disloyal Americans into internment camps. People are like, Christopher, I'm surprised you're not more angry. Some people said, hey, you were too angry, as if you have to present tyranny in some conservative fashion for the masses to consume. This bullshit, ridiculous, asinine, insane, and outrageous narrative. Again, a trial balloon, putting it out to the people, putting it into the public mind, the consciousness, so that they can understand what's coming to them. Just like they shut down Boston, for example, during the Boston bombing. There was two individuals, the two Tsarnaev brothers, that shut down an entire American city where martial law was declared, tanks were in the streets, husbands were being taken out illegally and anti-constitutionally out of their homes in search of a single individual. There was two brothers, one of them ended up dying, and the second one was hiding in a boat, of which a dozen or so, maybe more, special ops, police, special forces with automatic, semi-automatic weapons began to unload countless bullets and ammunition in a suburb, missing the victim, actually hitting him in the throat so he couldn't speak, while he was hiding in a boat, unarmed. Unarmed! We hear that from the mainstream media constantly. A black man was shot, unarmed! Well, so was the Tsarnaev brother. He was shot at. An entire city again shut down. Martial law declared over a couple pressure cooker bombs that went off that can be bought at a local Kmart or a Walmart or ordered online from Martha Stewart, was shot at unarmed. But you see, Americans don't care about that because they'll just suspend the Constitution anytime it fits the government narrative, the narrative of the mainstream media. Just like they're okay with General Wesley Clark, a four-star general, saying things like, well, if you're a disloyal American, you should just be put into an internment camp. Like, again, what we did with the Japanese during World War II, where if you had slanted eyes, maybe you had nothing to do with our enemy at the time as we were fighting a war against Japan, but you were just thrown into an intern camp, the equivalent of a FEMA camp or a concentration camp. Now, they're setting a precedent for disloyal Americans. They'll just put you in that broad basket that makes up terrorism. The same lie George W. Bush sold us as a reason for the invasion in the wars, illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, even though they had nothing to do with September 11th. So how far can this go? This should be mind-blowing for most Americans. At what point do Americans wake up and say, this has gone too far? Our society is just off the rails. Our government is exploiting us, we the people. This is government tyranny. It's not just outlandish, it's not just outrageous, it is insane, anti-American, and again, asinine that a four-star general would even suggest. The founding fathers would have had a field day with this. This is unbelievable rhetoric being spewed by the mainstream media and this four-star general. It just proves the point that everything is an illusion. I talk about this all the time, how the money system is an illusion. The Federal Reserve prints money backed by nothing out of thin air, creates all of this fake liquidity, as do central banks around the world, artificially suppressing interest rate, buying mortgage-backed securities, all these stimulative programs, QE to infinity, etc. Again, it's all an illusion. The bank, for every dollar it has on deposit, loans out 10. Greece, a Ponzi scheme economic system, just like the United States. Ponzi finance, now receiving a third bailout, roughly $87 billion, perpetuated into infinity, just really a bridge loan, a line of credit for the next 3 years, of which will result in total and utter failure and collapse, again, in the not-too-distant future. If it took you, how many rounds have we already had? 1, 2, 3? Obviously, something's not working. So it's probably not going to work the third time either. But just like the money system and finance and the Federal Reserve is an illusion, this fake wealth creation, courtesy of these criminal institutions and private banks, again, there's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, the same goes for your freedom in America. It's totally and utterly an illusion set up by the kings and queens of the modern day. See, nothing has changed. They'll suspend your rights. They'll suspend the Constitution just like they did in Boston recently, declaring martial law. They'll suspend the Constitution during an act of war like they did during World War II, and they'll round up the Japs. Anyone with slanted eyes, they'll throw you into an internment camp or concentration camp. Again, ISIS, the new boogeyman, just like Al-Qaeda was the old boogeyman. Now ISIS is the new boogeyman. And in times of war, as General Wesley Clark says, you don't have any rights. You know, it's amazing to me. I mean, think about this for a minute. What about all the individuals that went off to fought Vietnam not too long ago? Many of you tuning in, you came back disillusioned with that war. You probably lost your buddies out there. Maybe you suffered an injury, or maybe you just came back psychologically damaged and disillusioned. Does that mean because maybe you went to a protest or two or marched using your constitutional right, disagreeing with the war movement at the time, as many of you tuning in probably did in the 1960s period of time, that you should be labeled a disloyal American and thrown into an internment camp? You know, whatever happened to all those flower children in the 60s that became the baby boomers today that, you know, now wear suits and ties and are moving into retirement? I mean, what happened to America? What happened to our balls? What happened to our gusto? You see, they constantly just use whatever narrative is being created by the mainstream media to push their agenda, and all of it is an illusion. You know, they tell us things like we have constitutional freedoms, that we have the freedom of speech, the right to burn an American flag, to voice our grievances publicly without being persecuted, to practice our religion, to plant a flag, whether or not it's a U.S. flag or a Confederate flag. Yet they remind us that that can be suspended at any moment. All they have to do is, again, declare an act of war or just change the rules. And see, that's constantly what the elites do. They've done it with the banks and the multi-trillion-dollar bailouts, the too big to fails. They change the rules, the people suffer, the banks always win, the bureaucrats always win. They do this in time of war. They propagandize the new form of terrorism, whether or not it's Al-Qaeda, use that as the basis for countless invasions overseas in the Middle East. The younger Bush continuing the older Bush's wars, Obama continuing the younger and older Bush's wars. Again, all of these individuals still representing the corporate masters, representing the banksters, representing and propelling this illusion on the people. The illusion of the money system itself, the illusion of your freedom here in America, the fact that they say that this is a free country, even though through actions, everything that they're aiming and have already done is contrary to those foundational principles. It's contrary to the establishment of this constitutional republic, our Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, our First Amendment, which is protected by the Second. And then you start to enter this stage of fear-mongering, of self-censorship within the mainstream media. For example, many that work for the mainstream media can't voice their real opinions. You start to see self-censorship across all forms of media as they propel fear and put more fear out into the public consciousness and the minds of the people. It's exactly why they put out this trial balloon of FEMA camps, concentration camps, and internment camps through the voice box that makes up the four-star General Wesley Clark. Again, all of this happening for a reason, all of this reaching a boiling point, a cataclysm in American history. And when do the American people wake up? When do we say we've had enough? That America has truly gone off the rails and it's time for a change. It's time that we stand up for ourselves. It's time that we empower ourselves. It's time that we exercise the illusion of the freedom, rights, and liberties that they say that we have, that many Americans aren't utilizing, aren't actively pursuing, voicing their concerns, voicing their opinions, and putting people into power that truly represent them. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.